Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in the previous video I showcased the two new stencils that are now on my website for pre-order, and they're arriving tomorrow, Friday, don't know the date, hang on, Friday the 23rd of May. They should be arriving, and I will get those out in the post as soon as they actually arrive at my door. So I don't know whether they're coming in the morning or the afternoon. But what I thought I'd do is come by and we'll create a journal page with one of the stencils. So we'll just turn, I'm using my pink pig journal. Reminds me I need to order some more of these. Honestly, my head is just all over the place. So which journal do I want it on? I'm just checking if there's a spare page I can perhaps use that it can coordinate with. Could do it there. Let's do it on that page there. Right. Let's move these all out of the way. So I'm using my journal, and I'm going to take the Magnolia stencil or the silhouette bloom, whichever you want to call it. It can be whatever you want. So I'm going to take that. Let's place this back so it's just out of the way, and you can guarantee that I probably won't have everything that I need because I've just come back in. I had to pop out, so I've just come back in and I want to create a journal spread. So I'm just going to decide which way I would like the actual piece. So let me see. I don't know whether I'm using the stamp or not, but just in case I was, that goes with it. Let's take that out, and then we've got that ready, haven't we? Let's not faff with the plastic, Tracy. We'll see. I don't know whether I'm using that yet at all at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add colour to the floral as is, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that down. Let's actually act like a professional just for once, and we'll just take that down just so that we've got it anchored there then on the page. There we go. Just in case I just press a little too hard and it moves. So then we've got that on there. And we should be professional sometimes. I did have my blending brushes out. Blue and a purple. And what I'm going to do is just apply a little bit of the wilted violet at the moment, just because I want just the image on there at the moment. So I don't want anything too much, just to have the image actually on there. And I don't have to worry about that moving now because I've taped it down. Now on this journal, the Pink Pig journal, the pages, they allow you to move the ink because it takes moisture, and it allows you to move that quite nicely. Now I'm not pressing on because I don't want a really thick, rich layer of ink. I want to sort of colour later. This is just so I can see where my image is going. So let me just add some going down there. Yes, that's perfect. So I'd got that anchored on there. I'll leave that on there just in case I need it. You could also spritz this with water if you wished to then make another print. Now obviously I'm not going to leave it like that. I want to do a little bit of a technique. Now I bought some brushes. Now I don't treat myself very rarely to brushes. Don't ask me what that name is, but I just got them from Amazon. But they've got a needle point, and I really wanted a brush with a needle point just so that I can get right in there. This is a luxury. I've just treated myself to these because I'm actually enjoying my brushes that have got, that are a little bit finer to get into details, but sometimes if you've not got a quality brush, these just splay out. So I thought, oh, these look novel. So can you see it's got a needle point? Let me just hold that up. You can see that's got a needle point on there. There we go. I'm still going to be using my other brush, but this is just to get into the small areas where I don't want to add too much. Now, have I got a little container? Let's grab a little container. I've not got any water ready, but you know that's me, standard practice. So I'll just take that out of my spritzer bottle. And what I'm going to do, not that colour, is I'm going to take Blueprint Sketch. Nice, rich, dark colour. And then I'm going to use my brush. And the idea is hopefully this brush then stays like that. Oh, it feels quite weird. Look at that. So what I can do then is I can go right in. You can use your normal brushes. It's absolutely fine. You don't have to use what I'm using. And just blend this out. Now that's quite dark, so then I can take because I don't want to lose the detail, and I just want to use this brush just to go around the edges. You use any brush that you wish. I'm just adding, and I can just take the water and just move that a little bit. Let's move that water. Now, you know I've got water there. You don't need to see me have the water visible. And just dip my brush in the water and just move that a little bit. And when I've sort of gone round the actual floral, I'll then move to my other brush, but not quite yet. Just to add that fine detail. Now, you don't have to use oxides. You could use your watercolours if you wished. Quite easily use your watercolours. So you can see at the moment I'm just going around that magnolia. So there's a bit of water there. And obviously, if you've got half a brain, you move your book rather than moving your arm. So what I'm going to do is just go around, and I just dip into a little bit of water if it doesn't really move very much. But at the moment, that doesn't concern me too much. I just want to add some of this colour down here. So and it does help, doesn't it, if I tell you the colours. So first of all, I blended with Wilted Violet, and then I'm using Blueprint Sketch to actually go around the floral itself. I want a sort of a rich blue just to go around the edges. And then I'm just picking up a little bit of water just to move that out. Let's pick up a little bit of the colour, and then you can move that out. But I just want this for adding it just around the actual floral itself. And you can see I'm using very little water when I go close to the actual floral itself, because I don't really want to react the purple too much. But I need to lay down more stronger colour than this. And you'll see in a second. What we're going to do. So I'm just laying down the initial colour. So let's pick this up. So I'm just laying down an initial layer of colour just around the edges of that floral. And then just so it moves a little bit to the outside, or I soften it a little bit, I just add a little bit of water. That's all I do. Now let's have a look. Let's just add a little bit more down here. And you can see my blue is getting a little bit paler. But we obviously want some dark layers around there. But I sort of want to add a little bit of water, just so I'm creating a little bit of a wash and a background. Let's add a little bit more of that colour just before I do anything else. Let's just turn that round. And again, you can just dab that in a little bit of water. And I don't add too much water too close to the actual image, just because I don't want to react that purple too much at all. Right, so we've got that down initially. Let's just give that a rinse. Place that on there, and we'll just wipe this up. Look at that, they've all come out at once. You could add that to another piece of card. You could mop that up, no problem at all, so that you don't waste that. Let's just grab another piece of kitchen roll. Now I want it to sort of, I want some darker areas around the edge. Now what we can do, let's open this page. I only closed the page so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So let's take the stencil and a little bit of copier paper right on the wet, but there you go. And I'm just going to use any blending brush. Don't even know whether there's enough ink on here. There we go. So I can then cut this out. Now you want that cutting right to the edge. Like so. So I'm not leaving any white border. Now, you know that I don't like to have too much copier paper. That's it. And we're just going to go around and just cut around the outline of our floral-ish. So not leaving any white edge. And I could have had this done beforehand, but hey ho, I didn't. And I'm not going to cut the stem out, just no chance. Not for this anyway. I would if I was cutting it out and I wanted 3D. I would do that. I would cut the thing out and have a 3D element. So you can obviously 3D things if you want to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the blueprint sketch and I'm just going to add a little bit more depth of that colour. So I'm going to really take my blending brush, really add some colour, and now I can just hold, this is copier paper, it's got nothing sturdy about it at all, but what I can do is just go onto the copier paper, hold it in place and sweep away. And it just means that we can add the colour around the floral, just a little bit deeper and richer. Just go around the floral. Obviously it's copier paper, please remember it's copier paper. There's nothing sturdy or anything about it, and that's why you're sort of sweeping away from that. So you're going to sweep away like that, brush the ink away, brush that away, and you can see if you've got enough darkness of colour. Then I'm going to take the little bud and I'm going to do exactly the same. Just sweep that away and you go over your finger a little bit, but that's absolutely fine. There we go. And you've just got a little bit more colour around there, just in a more simplified way. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take the blueprint sketch again and just add a little bit more richness of colour. So we're just going to add a little bit. Let's hold this like this so you can actually see what I'm doing. Little bit of something there, even though I have cleaned my desk. So just clean all the ink onto the page, and what you're just doing is you're adding a really good thick layer of this ink. So keep going back and adding more of the ink. Just pick up the ink and add another layer. just sort of around the edges, coming at the top here. There we go. So we've got some nice colour on there. And then we're going to take our wilted violet and we're just going to add some of the wilted violet, and you're just going to sort of, you're going to press very lightly, just adding a sort of few little touches of the purple just in the background. But what you're not going to do is press too hard. Just add a few hints of that purple in the background. Don't forget, Tracy's nowhere near finished yet. So just add a little bit of the wilted violet here and there, just so that you've got that in the background. There we go. I'll just take a little bit of that ink, the blue, just at the top as well. That's it. Now what I want to do, now most of you've probably heard with a H, Tracy, of the bokeh effect, which is where people add layers of white paint with circles, but I want to do it a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take different items that have got circles on them. So for instance, we've got my paint lid here. What else have I got as a circle? Does that stick out enough? What else have I got of a circle? Let me see if I've just got a bigger lid. This is where I spend my life looking for lids. I know where I've got. So I've got the lid of my bleed proof white. And what I'm going to do is just add and see if it works. So I'm going to take the water, just plain water that I've been using, and I'm going to add a little bit of water. Now you can either put it on with your brush like this, or just dip it in the water. Nothing complicated. And then just add the water to the background. Now I can see where that circle is, so I'll grab some kitchen roll, take some water, and then I'm just going to just take that water and go around the circle that I've made, and then we'll just dab that up again. Just give that a dab. There's always a hair. I don't know whether it's mine or no idea. So we can try it by dipping it in the water. So let's just dip the lid in the water. See which is the easiest. I think it's easier with the paintbrush personally, but there you go. So we'll just go around and add. Can't even see the circle on that one. No, I can now. Just add your water. And you want a good layer of ink on there, and also card, the type of card and paper that you use is vital, because it has to allow you to, you know, those that water to react. If you haven't got the right card, then it won't react. I'm then going to take my little lid that's from the paint. It's just a paint lid, and I'm just going to add a little bit of moisture. I find it easier with the brush. Just add, yes, I find it much easier with the brush. And then we'll just add the water. So let's take water again. Just add that to your lid. I'm just pressing that on there, and then I can see exactly where I'm aiming for. And you can see I'm just adding the water. You can allow that to react as much or as little as you want. And then just dab. And we'll add a couple more of these small ones. I'm going to want something even smaller as well. So just take this, and you're just going to enjoy yourself by just doing this nice and simply. Again, you don't have to, don't have to be completely perfect. Just paint that water on there. I've got the circle. Bring this down, that water on there. And again, dab your circle. And it doesn't have to be too perfect. And I want something with a smaller lid. So Tracy's going to be spending the time going, it's got a smaller lid than that. How big's your lid? Oh, I've got a little lid here. There we go. So we'll take this lid, just add the moisture. And then I'll press that on there so I can see that circle. Oh yes, it works rather nicely, this does. Then I can just add, so let's put this paint one back. And then we'll add another. I'm just going to take my time now, just adding my circles. And you can make it so some circles don't sit with the water on there too much, and some that are a little bit longer. Then you want some really small circles. So have I got something? Do you like how I'm racking my brain? Oh, here you go. I've got a straw, honestly. That's because it's just, oh, I've done that upside down. That's just because it was sitting in there. So I've got a straw here that's got some smaller circles. It's even got the water on there. There we go. So you want some smaller circles now. We are going to want things overlapping as well. I like how it leaves a bubble of water, and then I've got the water. Look, I can't do anything. Look at the bubble stain there. That's hilarious. So we can then, let's burst the hole, the bubble, see if that stops it. Still, I like it. Probably with the vacuum and so you're just going to go round now and keep creating. Let's go back to this one. Some more of your circles. Just because then you create like a faux bokeh effect. Pick that up and carry on. Let's just add a few more. Nice, easy technique, nothing too complicated, and we can just enjoy ourselves. Now that's flooded with water. You can leave it as long as you wish to bleach more out, or you can leave it a short amount of time. So let's take the bigger lid. Let's add some water around here. There we go. And then you don't have to, it doesn't all have to be, you can do it so that it overlaps the page. And if you don't want to have the lids and you want to do it freehand, you can do it freehand as well. I just like having the circles, that's me. Just wonderful. Let's turn this over so we've actually got some clean kitchen roll. Let me just look through the camera and you can see you're just creating like a faux bokeh effect. So you then look for your lids that you've been using and you can't find them because you've got so much other stuff on there. There we go. So we'll have this overlapping here. And we'll just nothing could be simpler. I wonder if you can take the end of your paintbrush and just add a dot and then just go round in a circle. Oh, that's even easier than the straw. So you can take your paintbrush, dip it in the water, press it on there, and the water that's on there, just go round in a circle. There we go. Even easier. So let's have another one of the larger ones. Let's take this and press that here just to make sure that's on there. And as long as you get an impression, you can see quite easily where you're going, because the water on the lid leaves a white outline for you. I can't speak. There's a little bit I've missed there. In fact, I've just missed that completely. There we go. So then we'll take the smaller one. And you can add, again, you can take this and again you can leave it as long or a short amount of time that you wish. So let's just, let's see if we can bleach even more of that one out. And then dab. There we go. So you're creating your sort of faux bokeh, which is just wonderful. Let's just add a little dot there that I then just go around in a circle. And then, do I want another? Oh, we want this one. I suppose with you using the actual pieces to create the circles, you actually get a real proper circle rather than the paintbrush. So I do like the proper circles. So out comes the straw again, because I do like the proper circle. And you can, again, you can just go back and make some lighter than others, just so that they stand out a little bit more than the others. So make sure that you've got some overlapping. Honestly, it's great fun. And then if I want that to be even more bleached out, let's add another layer of water. Leave that on there a little bit longer. And then that is a little bit whiter than the others. So let's just carry on a little bit more now. So we'll take this one. And you see I've got that marking on there then, and then we can just leave that on there a few seconds, dab that colour off, and then we can come in again with some more water, clean piece of kitchen area, and just make that a little bit more prominently more white. You can make that more white quite easily. So again, let's take this one again. And it's great if like me, you've got the camera to look through. You can see where you want to add more areas. Just making that a little bit whiter. Let's have a look at that. Just lovely, absolutely lovely. Just giving us a great background. So we'll add another up here. I shall run out of kitchen roll soon. We'll then take our straw, mainly because I personally like the proper circle. Let's take a bit more out of that one. Dab again. And again. And you can see the colour really coming out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those sit. Might just do, oh terrible, might just do one more here. It's a bit addictive, to be honest. But obviously we're going to need our floral just to stand out a little bit more. Don't ask me where that's come from. Is it the straw? Probably the straw, because that's, yes it is, because that's what I blew bubbles out of. I told you I still keep things. Let's just take this again and let's add half a one-ish. I'll just dab that. Just wonderful. So I'm just going to, let's just leave the lids because they're a bit wet at the moment. So I want to now soften the background a little bit before we colour in our floral. So let's move this copy paper out of the way. So I want to sort of soften that a little so it looks a little bit more watercoloured. So I'm going to take the wilted violet. Or am I going to take, no, we won't. We'll take the blueprint sketch. And what I'm going to do now is take the water, but this time I'm sort of going to add the blue, but plenty of water as well, just so that it looks a little bit more watery around the floral and not quite so regimented. So I'm dipping my brush into the water and picking up the diluted colour, and then let's just make it a little bit more watercoloured, just so it's not quite so regimented around the circles. But on this, you're making it a bit watery, but you've got colour in there, colour and water. Just scribble in the areas just so that it's a little bit more watercolour-ish. So you just want a little bit of water, a little bit of colour. There you go. Just looks a little bit more watery. Let's just, there we go. Not that I'm very fussy. Let's make sure that lid is dry before we put any lids on. So we've got more of a watercolour feel. So what I'm going to do now is colour the floral, but I am going to start with the wilted violet. So let's take the wilted violet, and really, do you like how the colour of my water is completely blue? So let me see if I've got another container. Bear with me. Another container to hand. We've got this one that I did the bubbles in. So let's tip a little bit more water in here. Honestly, you couldn't take up much more room on my desk if I tried. So I'm then going to take the beautiful wilted violet, and then I'm just going to go around with a little bit more of the wilted violet. A little bit of water. Just add water to the, let's come in here, just add a little bit. So I've got my fine brush as usual, and what you're doing is you can see a little bit more depth in that. You want a lot more depth. You don't really, well, I don't want to leave it like that. I would like a little bit more depth, and I can feel the moisture in my page as I lean on that. You can let that dry naturally if you wish. Or, like me, you can just go with it. So let's just pick a little bit. Let's just water that a bit. Good grief. I always take a little bit of moisture off because I don't want to just add too much too soon. So I like to just sort of take my time. Just to add the colour. I sort of dip it into the water, then dip it out again. Let's take it. And you can build the depth even with just the inks. Just so that there's a little bit more life in the design, which I definitely want. I want a little bit more life in that design. And it doesn't matter, you can just colour loosely if you wish, or if you prefer, you can colour with your pencils. But I do like to show that you don't always have to have too much product. Obviously you can go in just by putting your stencil back over the top and go in that way. But I'm going to do it this way, mainly because I'm slightly addicted to colouring. But look at the depth now, compared to that. Just so much better. Really is so much better. There's hardly any colour on that. But I always find if I don't add too much of anything to my brush, I have a lot more control over the whole process. If I go and add far too much pigment or water, I just feel like it runs away from me. There we go. So you're just building up the layer just with a little bit of your Distress Oxide. And you can see I've got that built up a little bit, but I've forgotten the bud, but obviously not enough. Again, you can just put your stencil over the top if you wish. So let me just add the watercolour effect to this first. So let's come in and just add a little bit. Just blend that out. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we can improve. Let's just add a little bit more colour to that. So let me just move this out the way because I'll just get in my way. So I was going to say, where's the stencil then? I really was going to say, where's the stencil? So if I place the stencil, I was going to say, try and get it in the right place, and I think I have there. Okay, so you can get a bit of sponge if you wish. I've got one of my really tiny blending brushes, and what I can do is bring in the Distress Oxide, make sure that's covered in the ink, and then I'm just going to go around the edges. and just make it a little bit. You can even use your low tack tape that you've already had on there. So I'm just coming along and going along the lines, just going along the where you can see the mylar, which is what the stencil is made from, and just go along there, along the edge, a little bit darker. Just come along a little bit darker. You can do it in a circular motion if you wish. It doesn't have to be the way I'm doing it. Let's just add a little bit here, and we can bring this in a little bit with our so if I lift this up now, I've got that on there, I've got a hinge, I've now got a slightly darker layer just added to the floral. What I'm going to do is bring it back. So I'm going to bring this back, then I'm going to grab, is it Villainous Potion? That's it, yes. So I'm going to grab Villainous Potion, which is a little bit darker. Well, actually it's a lot darker, not a little bit. And I'm going to come down the edges. So where the mylar is, and just add a little bit more of that darker colour, just with the little brush, going down the mylar, just a little bit darker. You can, oh, see, I nearly forgot this little bud then. Let's just add a little bit darker edge. And then if I lift this off now, don't forget you've got all this ink on here that you can spritz with water and add to another background. So now I've automatically got some darker detail on there, can you see? But just so that it looks a little bit more watercoloured, I'm going to come in with a little bit of water and just soften the edge just a little bit, just so it's a little bit softened with the water. Just so the edges are not too harsh. Just that. And all I'm using is the oxide ink. So I'm going to give this a dry now. So let's give this a dry. And it just goes to show that you don't need nothing much more than your ink pads if you haven't got much else. Just give this a dry. And then I'm going to take the stencil again. I'm going to place that back over. It's quite easy to sort of get it in place. It might take you a few seconds, but you do get it in place. I'm then going to take the Villainous Potion again, and I'm going to, let's make sure that that is that actually on the edge? I'm now going to go in very detailed, so sort of So in the centre there, I'm just swiping that in. I think a little bit more of that colour in. And then I'm going to come back to the blueprint sketch. I don't know whether I've got a small one for the blueprint sketch. Oh, I have, I've got a blue one. I'm then going to go to the blueprint sketch. Let's take a little bit of the blueprint sketch. And I'm just going to add sort of a delicate touch of the blue just to the floral. Now, I may not hardly be adding anything. I may not see it enough. But I just want to add a little bit of a blue tinge. Let me just lift that up. Yes, there is a slight blue tinge. Can probably come in a little bit harder. Less is more. Don't come in too much. You just want it to have a hint of that blue on. Just lift that up. Now it has got a little hint of that blue on there. I'll lift this up so that you can see it, but I'm going to give that a little bit of a splatter with my fan brush. And as you can see, I've emptied most of my water. Why didn't I just dip it into there? Don't ask. So I'm just going to add a few little splatters. And I use the fan brush because the fan brush is a little bit more delicate with those splatters. So let's just bring that in. Let's give this a dry. Now the water will only react as long as that's wet. So I've left it a few moments and now I'm coming in just to dry. So let's just lift this up and dry. Give that a little bit of time just to dry that page. There we go. Just love that. And then I can just look at it again, and if I decide that, oh, I want a little bit of one here, you still should be able to react it a little bit, even though it's been dried. And yes, I can add one there. Just lovely. I mean, look at that. Just gorgeous. Now what we can do, we can add a little bit of the purple detail. You've got all this ink on here, so definitely spray that and reuse it. But now I can take my grunge, can't do that, grunge stencil, and I can add a little bit of detail with the purple. Not much, I don't want to overpower. So I just want to add little touches. Shall I add it that way? So I'm going to take a little bit of the purple, she says, as she frantically looks for the wilted violet. So let's take a little bit of the wilted violet. So let's take a little bit of that. Now I'm not pressing on too hard. In fact, I'm not pressing on enough. Let me just see. Yes, we can press on even harder, or maybe a little bit more ink. I'm just trying to make sure that, you know, I don't obliterate all the work that we've done. Yes, look at this. Just little details. So let's take that again. Let's grab some ink instead of being a little bit pathetic with the amount of ink. Let's just add a little bit here. Oh, just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So what about that lovely? So you can use the whole stencil if you wish, but you don't have to. And you can have some dark areas, or you can have some really light areas. Now I'm pressing on lightly initially because I'm just making sure that I can still see the detail underneath. Just gorgeous. Look at that. Look, can you see the little bits of detail in the page? Oh, happy, happy, happy. So what I'm going to do then, for more tone on tone, I'm going to wipe my stencil and actually be good for once. Give that a wipe. This stencil you could quite easily spritz with water, and you could add that to another background quite easily, because the floral would come off onto the background. You could spritz it with water, but I will keep you here for hours and hours if I carry on. So then, I did put it back, didn't I? We've got TE16 that coordinates with our stencil. We'll take that, and what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of the blueprint sketch. So take the blueprint sketch, take a little bit of TE16, Artsy Alphas and Numbers. Oh yes, and now I've got something that coordinates beautifully with the stencil work. But you can see each time I'm not doing anything too overpowering, so that the actual floral is the focal image. Let me just add that here. I will lift this up just so that you can see. Let's give that a clean. I'm going to hold this up for you. So if you look now, I've got the blue stamping on there, and it just coordinates beautifully with our stencil. Oh, wonderful. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use, let's make sure that's dry, a little bit of black cherry, my Prismacolor PC1078. And now I'm going to bring in a little bit of the black cherry, just to bring in a little bit more detail. Not too much, because I still sort of want to see the oxide that we've added. You know, I really want to see that, because it just adds a different feel to our design. So I'm not going to overpower with the black cherry, but just to give a little bit more shading just to that, and just a little bit more. Plus I love all the watery effect as well, so I don't want to cover that up either. So just a little bit. Just a little bit of that. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of lavender, PC934, and just blend that with a little bit of the lavender. Just the edges, just a little bit with the lavender. But I'm not pressing too hard, and not overly blending either. Just giving it a little bit more oomph. Just a little bit more of that colour. Let's have a look if we can see the, oh yes, I can see a massive difference. Just wonderful. So where is it again? So let's take a little bit of this here, a little bit here. And just give a little bit of blend. Oh, it makes me so happy. Now, if you want, you can add your magnolia stamp if you wish. But I'm also trying to show you that even if you've just got the stencil, you know, you can do so much even with a little bit of just the stencil. Oh, I just love that. So let's add some white splatters. So we'll just take our Posca pen and add some wonderful splatters, just so you can see what we've got so far. Absolutely adore that. Absolutely love it. Of course, where's my little critters, the alpha florals? And we'll take maybe one of the pheasants. So I want you looking at the floral. So I'm going to, now you know how many layers of ink and everything is on here. So I'm going to take my black ink now. Just make sure your stamp is not going to fall off, and you know exactly why I'm telling you that. There we go. Now I foolishly didn't check whether there was any lumps and bumps under the page, which you really should check. Now I'm just giving this a few moments longer, mainly because it's got that oxide ink on there, but we're absolutely fine. Where's my, like you can see anything on my desk. Let's move all these blending brushes just so that we've got a bit more space. And we'll move that stamp out of the way, and then we might see things. Might being the operative word. I'm telling you now, you can hardly see anything. Where's my little, there it is. So then we can just add a little bit of Inktense pencil. Just under here. I've now got no room to actually move. Take a little bit of that moisture off, and then I can just touch that just to give a little bit of a blend. I'm knocking everything over here. Let's just add a little bit just here. Dip that in the water, take off the excess, and I just sort of touch that with the moisture. And in fact, there's not enough moisture on there, but I'm only really touching that because I don't want to sort of reactivate the oxides. So what I'm going to do then, whilst I've got the heat tool here, because now I've added the Posca pen, obviously it's going to take on that colour of the oxide. You can use your bleed proof. Or like me, oops, sorry, I've just nudged the camera. You can dry that just so that it doesn't react too much. So just give that a dry so that it doesn't react too much. Then I'll bring in my magnolia stamp, which I shouldn't have left the plastic out. So we'll take the magnolia stamp. I can take the magnolia text. That's straight, you know. Let's move that out the way. Just take that. Again, make sure that's going to stay on your acrylic block. I'm going to add the magnolia text here. Again, just giving that a few moments just to absorb onto the surface of the card. Let's place that back. And I can see, let's just add a little bit more of that L, that's better. Just going to add a little bit of shading under that, like so. And we will add a little bit of water. Just a blend. There we go. And then you can take your Posca pen, and if you wish, you can just add a few little touches of white, should you wish. It doesn't really need much on there, but you can just add a few touches of white here and there. And then that is your little page. Let's fold that over. Your little page done, which has got like a faux bokeh effect. And even if you see something, so like if I want this more prominent, you can still go in, add a little bit more water, and I can just lift, because I didn't quite dry that as much, so I've still lifted a bit more colour. But I just love that. I absolutely adore it. So I hope you've enjoyed that video, and I hope you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.